There is an absolutely crazy core mechanic in Dragon's Dogma 2 that can actually ruin your save file. And I don't mean this hyperbole, I'm not talking about stat growths for example, where you can make your character be suboptimal, so they end up doing a little bit less damage. I'm also not talking about how you can miss one quest or something small like that. I'm talking about the Dragonsplague, and this is a huge deal. The director of Dragon's Dogma 2, Ideaki Istuno, has even gone on to say that whenever this event happens, it's going to be a calamity and there will be catastrophic consequences. So a big heads up before I continue with the video, if you don't want to be spoiled about this mechanic, then click away from the video, but I will be talking about this mechanic because I have seen a lot of players complaining about it and how it ruined their save file and how they actually feel like they don't want to continue playing the game. So with that out of the way, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and let's get right into it. So what is the Dragonsplague, what exactly does it do, how do you get it, and how can you avoid it? Let's start by talking about what exactly it is. Quite simply, one of your pawns, be it your main pawn or any of the pawns that you hire from the Rift, can be afflicted with Dragon's Blight. Thankfully, there is a very easy and simple way for you to check if your pawn has Dragon's Blight. If you look at them and you see that their eyes are red, that is an indication that they have contracted Dragon's Blight. If it is your first time seeing it, you will be getting this pop-up that is going to indicate that one of your pawns has contracted Dragon's Blight. It's not going to outright tell you exactly what that does, but at the very least the game goes out of their way to warn you about it. So if you have never seen that notice, you are totally fine. That being said, you are likely going to encounter Dragonsplague at some point in your playthrough. That being said, how exactly do you contract Dragonsplague? I believe there are actually two different ways that your pawn can contract it, with one of them being that your main pawn is hired by a player that has another pawn that has the Dragonsplague, and so it ends up spreading to your own pawn. Or again, you could just be hiring a pawn that already has the Dragonsplague affliction. That being said, I do believe there is one more way of you contracting the Dragonsplague, and that is the drakes that you end up fighting in the actual game. You see, in the previous Dragon's Dogma and now in the sequel as well, these drakes can actually take control of one of your pawns, bend their will and make them fight against you. And I do believe that that is one of the ways in which Dragonsplague ends up being spread. Because think about it, there had to be a pawn that started having Dragonsplague to be able to spread the affliction to other pawns. So I would advise you to, after fighting a Drake, keep a close eye on your pawns. So let us finally talk about the effects of this thing and how you can counter it. Once one of your pawns becomes infected with it, they will become much more aggressive in combat and will outright ignore the orders of the Arisen. And I believe there's even some unique dialogue that your pawns will be saying when they have contracted Dragonsplague. However, the big thing here is that whenever you go to rest at an inn while one of your pawns has contracted Dragonsplague, an ominous cutscene will play out where you will see your character in a dark setting with their red eyes, with this dark dragon symbol, and then the night will pass. And whenever you finish resting, you will come back to a desert town. Your pawn has effectively killed off everyone that was there, and I do mean everyone. It doesn't matter whether or not it's your main pawn or one of your hired pawns, they will all be dead. The random NPCs that you see walking around town, the shopkeepers, the more important storyline quest NPCs will all be dead. You know how Smash Ultimate goes, everyone is here? Well, it's pretty much the same thing except everyone is dead. Now keep in mind that of course you can go ahead and use your wake stones to be able to revive some of the NPCs, but if for example you contract Dragonsplague in Vernworth and you go to rest at the inn, you're going to kill everyone that is on that big city. However, thankfully there is a way to prevent this from happening. Well, for starters, if it's not your main pawn that has contracted Dragonsplague, then you will be able to easily spot if a pawn that you are trying to hire has it or not. You just need to be careful and pay close attention to their eyes. You can even spot it in the Rift while you are trying to hire a pawn. So if you happen to hire a pawn that has the Dragonsplague, you can of course dismiss them. However, if it's the case of your main pawn, then the only way that you have of dealing with this is to outright kill them. Go up to some place high and throw them off a cliff. That is pretty much how you deal with Dragonsplague, as once you go back to a Rift Stone and summon your pawn back, they will no longer have the Dragonsplague. However, once the effects of Dragonsplague have already occurred, there's really nothing you can do to fix it other than using wake stones or an eternal wake stone that you can get from the Sphinx, which will revive everyone in the vicinity. But of course keep in mind that those bodies are only going to be there for a limited period of time. Now that being said, I have had Dragonsplague occur 3 or 4 times already on my save file because I wanted to see the results of it, and maybe this feature is a little bit buggy, but the first time it happened to me I was very surprised. I was in in the elf village and everyone there ended up being killed. I had already finished all of the side quests regarding the elf village, so I went ahead and only revived the innkeeper and one of the shopkeepers. I did not revive the elf that initially asks you for a bow, aka Glenweir. I didn't revive his dad and I didn't revive his sister. I only used the wake stones on those two NPCs. However, when I came back to the elf village a few days later, I saw it fully populated.
Is it possible this devastation was caused by a pawn with Dragonsplague?
Master, what would you do if I were to be afflicted with Dragonsplague?
There were tons of NPCs walking around, the second shopkeeper that I did not revive came back, and the elf sister whose name currently eludes me also came back to life. Additionally, once I entered the endgame of Dragon's Dogma 2, everyone else that was dead also came back to life. So that was Glenweir and his dad, the village chief, and a couple of random NPCs came back to life. I've also had Dragonsplague happen in a bunch of different towns, and after some time some NPCs did come back, but not all of them. It felt somewhat inconsistent, which makes the consequence of the Dragonsplague not feel as impactful. But then again, it may have been a bug, and I honestly wish I had recorded my own reaction to it the first time it happened, because it was such a cool event. I know a lot of players don't like the idea of losing key NPCs in your playthrough, but personally I think it makes for a cool story, and I like these emergent gameplay moments that Dragon's Dogma 2 keeps providing and allow for you to have a different experience compared to everyone else. That being said, I think that the Dragonsplague could be a little bit more fleshed out. I think it would be cool if the game actually forced you to fight against one of your pawns, and it would be awesome if they had an actual boss health bar, and maybe the developers could even add some extra flair to their movements and attacks. And then at the end, maybe you end up with a single wakestone shard or a single wakestone that you can use to revive a key NPC. I think that would make the event a lot cooler because, as it currently is, it's a cool fun thing that happens once, and then you learn to deal with it and move on with your playthrough. I think it's a shame that this mechanic has been spoiled for so many players, because I really do believe that the Dragonsplague is a cool mechanic and you only get to experience it once. It's one of those memorable moments that you can find in things such as the Siofra River from Elden Ring that you can only experience once. That being said, I find it hilarious that now a bunch of players are going to be concerned and they are going to be paying close attention to the pawns that they hire. And as someone that has been sending forgeries of port crystals, I might just cover the entire face of my pawn or maybe just give him red eyes so that people can become even more paranoid. I think that would be fun. And so with that, I turn to you guys. Let me know if you have experienced Dragonsplague before, and if you have, tell me exactly how it happened and how you reacted to it. I'm very curious to know about all of this, and despite this event happening to me just a few days before the game's actual release, I didn't make a video on it because I didn't want to spoil this big moment for many of you. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting.